Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. A couple of minutes ago I posted a video also dealing with the emotional aspect to the Chris Watts case. This is a very underreported aspect, and that's over on Patreon. You're welcome to watch all the videos there, around about one video posted every day for as little as $1 a month. So consider going there. This video on YouTube links up to that, although the material is a lot lighter in a way. It may not seem like it given the title of this post. I'm also sure a lot of people who have accused me or suspected me of having some kind of vendetta against Shanann will unsubscribe. That's fine. It's best if the people who feel that way do get off this channel. For the rest, we're going to be looking just at this idea of humiliation and what impact that had on the Watts couple. Before we get there, please subscribe if this is a subject that you're interested in. Like, share amongst your networks. That's also on Twitter and Facebook. And ring the doorbell. Ring the bell if you'd like to receive notifications. And let's get started. So this particular post is based on something written on crimerocket.com on October the 21st, 2018. So this predated the discovery by around about a month. And so obviously at the time that this was posted, one of the things Crime Rocket was trying to figure out was the motive and the dynamics and the sort of on the ground, behind closed doors vibe that was going on in the Watts household. And at this point I'd already written a couple of books, and so what I said was that in Two-Face I discussed the seemingly esoteric subject of man as a symbolic animal, and as a symbolic animal how we are nourished, validated with symbols that mean things to us. Flags, colors, brands, songs. The human experience is awash with things that enhance our experience of the world. But just as an animal who's nourished on symbols can find them infinitely and exquisitely validating, he can also be infinitely and excruciatingly invalidated. And if you just think about Facebook, you think about what does a like mean? It means validation. What does 10 or 100 or 1,000 likes mean? It means validation. What do followers mean? It means support and validation. What does it mean when people unsubscribe and give you a thumbs down? It means they don't support you, they don't like you, they are invalidating you, and all that kind of thing. So in the same way that social media can be very validating and supportive, it can be incredibly humiliating, because you're not being just humiliated one-on-one by one specific person, but everyone gets to share in that. Everyone gets to see it, and that makes it so much worse, so many more times worse, and this first paragraph may seem very complicated to talk about esoterics and symbols, but it's not. We all know what we're talking about when we talk about the symbol of a like, and if someone leaves a comment that is fair and kind or whatever compared to someone criticizing you, even if it's someone we don't know, we still find that criticism stinging. And those little symbols that go along with it, whether it's a face palm or a roll of the eyes or whatever, people see that and they also register that. So Facebook is a great example of a simple symbolic schema that, if we allow it, determines our worth. And that is very largely the case in our society today. It's something that millennials are grappling with, which is my social media equals X, therefore I am. It used to be I think, therefore I am. Now it's my social media, therefore I am. So we measure ourselves, our social power, and one another, their social power, by the number of friends, likes, and interactions we get on social media. And we especially value gestures of reinforcement from people that are important or important to us. There are quite a few dynamics in play on social media. There's the my social power, there's yours, and then the dynamic between mine and yours. In other words, who I am vis-a-vis everyone else, and who you are vis-a-vis me, and then everyone else. The magic of Thrive is how it's designed to be a system where a nobody can be thrown a social media lifebuoy and turned into somebody by legions of other MLM nobodies, all hell-bent on the same need for social enrichment and the piles of gold coins anticipated to go along with that. So a lot of the self-enrichment is kind of a parallel to the promise of actual enrichment. If you sing someone else's praises, they'll sing yours. If you sing someone else's praises, they're gonna maybe have income flowing to them. If someone else sings your social praises, income may be flowing to you. If everyone sings everyone's social praises within the Thrive umbrella, everyone's going to get rich, and everyone is totally caught up within that symbology and that kind of spiel. And a lot of Facebook is like that, a lot of social media is like that. You sing my praises and I'll sing yours. It's got nothing to do with what you really think. It's got everything to do with some kind of mercenary transactional thing. You know, what can I get out of this? You follow me and I'll follow you. I'll make you rich, give you free stuff, and you do the same for me. It's brilliant because everybody wins, right? Well, not quite. It's not entirely accurate. We've seen Shanann singing her husband's praises as her rock, the love of her life, the one for her, the one who stood by her, someone who she considered amazing as a man, and an amazing father, the best thing that had ever happened to her, and a great father. Validating, right? So one of the things Shanann said about Chris Watts, and I think this was quoted on the Daily Beast about a year ago, was that she'd said about Chris Watts, you work your ass off, you're an amazing husband and an even better dad. You are the blessing I've been looking for my whole life. Now imagine what this feels like. Two Christmases ago, this is a post from Shanann, writing that 2 Christmases ago I was baking cookies and I asked him, so yeah, Watts is referred to kind of in the third person, his name's not actually mentioned, and she says, I asked him to lay the parchment paper on the cookie sheet, and this is what he did. And then she puts up 2 face palms, and then to emphasize it, she says he wasn't trying to be funny either, exclamation mark. Now one might say, give him a break or give her a break, you know, so what? Quite a lot of effort went into this. Shanann literally took a photo of what Chris Watts did, put it on Facebook, and provided a little story. Like I say, their 2 face palms is also an exclamation mark. And if you go and look at the bottom of the post, there are 42 reactions to that. So 42 people responded to Shanann's comment, and a lot of them were sort of kind of a laughing face with the eyes closed and that sort of thing. Now you might look at that and have no emotional reaction to it. It's so what, that's what Shanann did. But if someone did that to you, just about anything that you did and put up those two face palms on Facebook, and 42 people reacted, I can guarantee you would confront that person and you wouldn't be very happy, and you'd probably ask them or expect them to take it down, especially if it was your wife, especially if it's a close relative, especially if it's someone close to you. One wonders whether Chris Watts is even aware of this. It's hard to believe he wouldn't be, especially if his father was at that time friends with Shanann on Facebook, and maybe his mother as well. So it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't have told him that, which is what is so often the case on social media. Without judging the whole story, let's just spend a little bit of time understanding what's going on here. Shanann actually took out her camera, probably not a camera but just her phone, snapped a picture demonstrating her husband's idiocy after giving him instructions. She told him exactly what to do, and like a total idiot, he did something that didn't make any sense. And then she showed everyone what an idiot he was. And what this reveals isn't just someone who's used to ordering someone, giving someone instructions. She also expresses anger and contempt when that person doesn't deliver. When he doesn't do what she expected, then there's anger and contempt. And it goes beyond just telling him that. She needs to tell a lot more people that for social support, for reinforcement. Now again, you might say, why are you making a big deal about this? Give Shanann a break. But we're talking about this in relation to criminal psychology and a crime. And you asked the question, why didn't Chris Watts just get a divorce? Why didn't he just come clean and just tell Shanann, listen here, I've been having an affair on you, and I think we should in a civilized way try and split up and just do this the proper way. Do you think this little incident with the cookie sheet, do you think that shows someone who's going to want to respect the whole process of getting divorced, or do you think it's someone who is going to tell everyone what a useless, horrible person he is or he was? Because in the same way that I think Shanann's praise was kind of fake, I don't think she always thought he was such an amazing husband, and her saying that on social media, but meanwhile at home she might have said other things to him, her saying nice things about him but really just to thrive and to sell the thriving family fairy tale, was effectively just putting pressure on him and in a way invalidating him. Can you imagine if someone is saying what a great guy you are when you know you're not? When you know you, whatever, having an affair or whatever it is going on. Meanwhile, this sort of fake praise is going on. A person like that is going to be just as quick to jump on the bandwagon when they really have something to be upset about. Now, it's unlikely that the picture in the post about the cookie sheet was from 2 Christmases past. But the fact that Shanann would go to the effort to demo how dumb her partner was in this instance to better and more fully illustrate her point and share it on social media, again, note the facepalm, says something about a tendency to borrow strength from her Facebook flock when her husband fell out of favor. Now, bear in mind she did exactly the same with Nutgate. It wasn't enough to confront her family and to tell Chris Watts about it. She had to go onto Facebook and make sure that her supporters rallied around her. And again, the whole reason why we're bringing this up is, wouldn't this be a warning to Chris Watts that if he did get divorced, he could expect this? He could expect a social media shitstorm, right? And was he the kind of guy who could handle something like that? Was he the kind of guy who was active on social media and who could handle his reputation? Was he someone who wanted and could handle a situation like that? I don't think so. I don't think introverts are very good at that. So if that did happen, Shanann would easily win the war. She had far more support online, and she could certainly infect the narrative by doing that, whereas he pretty much didn't have an online presence. And so I guess he was worried. Wasn't he worried that what was said about him on social media that he couldn't control could be devastating? Maybe he would even lose his job, assuming that he went through with a divorce. So it's important to note that what we're seeing here are patterns of chastising what's not only in private, which we know he did, but he actually needed to be punished. He needed to be flogged in public. Now, before anybody responds to that, guess what people are doing to Nicole Kessinger right now? It's not enough to feel whatever way they do about her, but she needs to be punished too. She needs to be flogged in public, and her public flogging has been going on relentlessly for months, and there seems to be no end in sight. One particular YouTuber, I think like the last 4 videos are just occult symbols. That's all it is, and it's kind of a version of flogging someone in public. I'm going to make sure everybody is very well aware that you have these spiritual beliefs, and we're going to think the worst of them, right? So whatever you think about Shanann not humiliating her husband or humiliating him, think about what's going on YouTube, and just this really ugly aspect of society where people like to flog people in public, and they get a lot of support for doing that. It's very entertaining, it's very interesting. People get to vent on their own ugliness, right? And they get to punish somebody. They get to teach somebody a lesson. It's incredibly ugly, and not everyone wants to do that. I'm one of them. I don't really want to get into that whole show. As much as I'm talking on Facebook, I don't like to show my face, and some of the comments that I get are really, 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 really invalidating. And one feels often that you're being punished for for whatever you're if there's any way to misinterpret what you're saying, it is misinterpreted. And so never a good deed goes unpunished. Have you ever heard of that? So but let's get back to this blog post. In another post, Shanann uses 7 face palms to make her point. All symbolic emoticons, all kind of harmless. It's not as though she's literally slapping Watts to the face or anything like that. They're just symbolic things. But can you imagine if Chris Watts saw them? Can you imagine if he saw the 7 face palms that were kind of addressed to him? It's not just the fact that his own wife is doing this, it's that she's making a spectacle of it and really exaggerating it. Not one face palm is not enough. There need to be a lot, and then everyone else needs to see it and express their opinion. Don't you think that would tend to invalidate all the flattering stuff Shanann had said about him? So just one post like this, don't you think it almost turns to nonsense, all the nice stuff? If you're going to say an ugly thing like this, it really turns all the nice stuff to nothing, to dust. So in this case, Shanann was talking about a pork roast that she got from Costco, and she'd put one of them in the oven, and she told Watts what seasonings to put on. And once again, you kind of get the impression that Shanann is used to just giving Watts instructions in terms of quite specific details. She's used to telling him exactly what to do, and she's used to him doing it. And then she says here, then I told him to put the rest on a plate in the fridge and I will freeze them tonight. So I told him to do this, I told him to do that. Then when I came home and I found not one pork roast in the oven but two stacked on top of each other, exclamation mark again, just showing the emotion there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 face palms with the hashtag he needs cooking classes and he doesn't listen. So I just wonder from you guys, maybe some of you are millennials, some of you are older people, some of you are younger. Do you guys do that? Like, do you guys is it normal to put onto Facebook things that are happening at home that either upset you or whatever? And then you might say it is normal. Well, is it normal to humiliate your partner? And you might say this isn't humiliation. Well, then whatever the word is it normal to make fun of your partner? And then if you're someone who does that, I wonder if you could share what that's like. So when you make fun of your partner, is there a good result? Has that brought your marriage closer? Does it bring your family closer? Does it sort of cause kind of an adhesiveness to your Facebook community? Because I'm quite not close, but I know a divorce lawyer quite well personally, and he's written a book, and one of the things he says is Facebook is the new committing of adultery. Facebook is the new thing where that destroys marriages. And what he's talking about is it's not only the thing that undermines marriage, where one or the other partner does or says something or is caught out somewhere, whatever, but it's also the way that affairs are conducted, is where someone contacts someone who's married through Facebook or vice versa. But this divorce lawyer is just saying how Facebook has become a cliche just in the misery that befalls couples, that Facebook is kind of the black sheep in what causes marriages to unravel. That's where it starts. It starts with little snipes and criticisms on Facebook, and then that contempt only grows. And the Facebook stuff's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just a symptom of what's really going on. Now imagine this. Imagine when you're being validated, it's not because of something real that you did or because of some genuine encouragement, but rather it's part of a spiel to sell patches. And we know that Shanann also appropriated Chris Watts's Facebook account. So even what he's saying there isn't even him, it's that's fake too. So I don't know whether on Chris Watts's Facebook he was saying what a great gal Shanann was and what an amazing wife she was or whatever. I don't know whether that was going on, but one can imagine that this whole thing is one huge spiel to sell stuff. And so who he is doesn't really matter anymore. Who he is simply and conveniently expropriated for economies of scope to tip the social media scales in her favor. But then at other times when he's being invalidated, well, that's real. That's based on real life. Nothing is being sold there except the abounding truth that he's an idiot. In either case, Shanann's turning to Facebook to be her megaphone about her feelings. And so what is really interesting and quite sad, to be honest, is the responses to this particular post. And obviously you've got to go to Shanann's Facebook to find this. But what you find is Shanann's own father responding to Shanann's criticism. And so what Frank Rusick says is, he says, hey, at least he tries. He adds, I've had many women who can't cook in the microwave. And then he says, LMAO, he means well, he wanted pork roast for the next 2 weeks, ha ha. And at the time that I checked this, it was 29 weeks earlier, so it wasn't it wasn't more than about 6 months before her death that this was posted. And on Frankie's comment are 12 responses. One of them is a tear face, someone shedding a tear. And that seems to be showing someone sympathizing with Frankie, saying, at least this guy's trying. At least he didn't say, well, I'm not going to do it. He tried, and he, obviously didn't do it very well. Instead of Shanann sort of, I don't know, just going with it, she sort of reinforces her argument. She says, referring to Watts again in the third person, she says, he didn't do this on his own or something. I think she left out the word this there. She said, I asked and specifically said there were 4 in the package. And once again, it's this thing of she has been very clear, telling him what to do, and he didn't listen. And so in a way, he deserves this lambasting on Facebook. He deserves his father-in-law listening to what his wife is saying and kind of laughing at him, saying ha ha, literally, saying LMAO, all that kind of thing. And so, they are father-in-law and his wife talking about him on social media and just how stupid he was, right? And Shanann's still not done. She says, I have to cook now, and it's another face palm. And then under that same thread, Addie Maloney chimes in and she writes, I love Chris Watts. And there's another, emoticon of someone shedding a tear. And then Shanann's response once again is a face palm. So what she seems to be insisting on is, guys, agree with me what an idiot this guy is. She doesn't really want to hear that he made an innocent mistake or something. She wants to hear them say she's right, that he is a total idiot. If you take this into Nutgate and you take it how Cindy or somebody took out the tub of ice cream, and it's the same kind of thing where Shanann told her not to do this, and then she went and told the world that this is what her mother-in-law did. But it's a similar thing of, if I say something, I expect the whole world to listen to what I'm saying. And what if that other person that you're expecting that is someone just like you? So for example, when Cindy took out the nuts, she said, well, I'm not giving them to Cece, and I'm not rationalizing this, I'm simply conflating the two. She said, I'm not giving it to Cece, and Cece needs to learn. She needs to learn she can't get what she wants. And that was what really set Shanann off, because she couldn't stand the idea of someone not just countering what she was saying, her authority, but someone teaching her child a lesson. That's her job. It's not anyone else's job to teach a child a lesson. And that may be true. You might say it isn't anyone else's job to teach her a lesson, not even her grandmother. But then, whose job is it to teach anyone a lesson? I mean, what is teaching someone a lesson? If a wife isn't happy with her husband, should she teach him a lesson? If parents, I'm talking about you listening, if you have parents who aren't happy with something you've done, should they teach you a lesson as an adult? When does this teaching of a lesson stop? I mean, I've got a friend who was just telling me about her parents have actually died, but she was telling me how she would ask her father for something, and he would, for example, let's say she asked for a blue pen, and he would give her a green pen. Or she'd ask for, say, a whatever, and it was, let's say she wanted it blue. Her father would purposefully give her something else, and then she'd sort of innocently say, I don't understand, why didn't you give me what I asked for? And his answer was, well, I want to teach you a lesson that you can't get what you want. Now, do you really need somebody to teach you that over and over again, someone who's supposed to love you? Or do you want can't you just let life do that? Can't you let life teach those lessons? And so Shanann's, one of her last sort of points on this is that she says, she's still insisting on this. She says, he sees me cook all the time, and then there are another 7 face palms. And so what this is at the end of the day, it's a betrayal. Each and every one of those face palms is deeply invalidating. It's not a smiley face, it's not meant in good humor, it's meant to be you an idiot. It's the complete opposite of the feel-good factor of the social media mentioned earlier. By anchoring praise in Thrive-themed promotion on the one hand, and anchoring criticism to reality in the other, Shanann's exposing herself in this particular sense on Facebook as a capricious charlatan. And I realize that's harsh, but I'm speaking specifically in this sense, that it is capricious. It is, what she's saying, the praise, is the praise valid? Is it true? And also in terms of her marriage, we know where her marriage was in the last week of her life, and she was also saying how great her life was, even in that last week. Even when she was having the best week of her life, she was saying how great Thrive was. And I say this with sympathy and compassion to Shanann. Can you imagine if Shanann almost mentally just threw Thrive out the window in that last week and just said, forget about selling the Thrive fairy tale, forget about talking up her pregnancy, and which she desperately wanted to do, and talking up pretty much everything. What if she just sort of sat in her car and said, what the F is going on right now? What the F is going on with everything? What's going on with our finances? What's going on with Chris? What is going on with me? What am I doing with my life? And she just had kind of an existential moment. That could have been a moment that could have saved her life if she got out of that thing of that spiel thing, and if she'd been real and said, Jeepers, I think this guy is having an affair. I wonder if he still loves me. I wonder if I can save my marriage. I wonder if I need to just stop the whole Thrive thing and just focus on what's going on, and not gone to Arizona that weekend. It just makes you wonder if Shanann could have been her own savior if she was able to change that. And I've put up another video that it caused a lot of upset as well, where I talked about if Shanann took her own advice, where just a few months earlier she'd said, I want a drama-free life. Now putting these things on Facebook doesn't help that. It creates drama. All those emoticons are drama, right? And part of how you don't have drama is literally where you throw everything out the window and you say, and you strip everything down to its spare parts, and you say, what are we dealing with here? What is going on with my marriage? What's going on with me? Why am I feeling this tension? Why am I feeling this uncertainty? What's going on with this other person? I need to get them into a room and just sort out what is going on. I need to understand what is going on. I need to check and make sure. I want to stop running away, and I want to deal with this, but without drama, right? And the converse is that Chris Watts sees her contempt for him in these many Facebook posts. It's not just this one, there are many of them. And that makes him realize when there's a real thing to deal with, where there's going to be a lot of emotion and a lot of drama, does he want to do that? Does he want to kind of waken the dragon, not only in her but in himself? And the answer is no, he doesn't want to. He's afraid to do that. He knows it's going to be a nightmare. And he wants to rather run away to Kissinger, where he can be somebody, where he can be someone who listens to him, someone who doesn't have any social media. That may have been one of the attractions that he had to her. was that she was like a real person. Her job was real. Her exercise was real. It wasn't just sort of virtual. And I must say, I kind of agree with that. I like people who are real. I don't like people who are just online all the time. And that's something I don't like about myself either. I don't want to be someone who's just a virtual presence in the world. I mean, isn't a real person, an authentic person, one of the most attractive people you can meet? An independent person, someone who's made a life for themselves. Isn't that someone you want to be with? Someone who has interrogated reality, someone who has found a place in the real world for themselves. Those are attractive people. I mean, the whole influencer thing online is fake. It's often not honest, and it's often just people recycling things. It's real when that online thing is the parallel universe to someone who's really impressive. Now, when someone has really done things with their lives, like say Michael Phelps or Elon Musk, or can you imagine if Neil Armstrong walked on the moon today? What would happen to social media? It'd be like the world's most popular human being, right? So when it's based on real achievements, that's great, but so often it's now based just on appearances. And so Watts didn't want to be just a prop in Shanann's business, and a fake prop. And they both knew it. They both knew that who he was wasn't really who she said he was. And he wanted to be someone of substance. He didn't want to be some spiel, right? He didn't want to just show up for a photo and otherwise, okay, go and make a mess of what I've asked you to do. And this brings us to another quote from Gregor Law, Shanann's former boss, I think at Longmont Ford. And you may look at this and say, well, you're being really unfair, and this is just your opinion, but this was also the opinion of other people. And there's no reason why Gregor Law would say this and also be interviewed by the Daily Beast and say the same thing if it wasn't true. And what he said was, he was very passive. Chris Watts was very passive. She was very aggressive with him. Bossy, do this, do that, telling him what to do, dominating the relationship. And on paper, there's nothing wrong with that. If he wants to be passive, it's fine. If she is normally controlling and someone needs to take leadership, it's fine. But if you look at Gregor Law's words, he doesn't just say that Watts was passive and she was bossy. He says Watts was very passive, in other words, very introverted, very quiet. And she was not just aggressive, she was very aggressive, very bossy. She was very much a dominant force in the relationship. And one can imagine in a situation like that with anybody, where any person in a dynamic starts to dominate it, especially on social media, it can feel oppressive. It can feel like something you want to get out of and you don't want to be a part of. So without knowing anything about the Watts case, other than the fact that there were 3 victims as well as the unborn Nico, it's abundantly clear there was an excess of sadism in this particular crime. So to be clear, all crimes are sadistic. Sadism is the intentional effort to benefit at another's expense. I kill you, you dead, I live at your expense, and hopefully I flourish at your expense. Hopefully I thrive at your expense. The more murders, the more sadism. And so the fact that in the Chris Watts case you have, as I say, 3, arguably 4 people that have died, that's a very sadistic crime. And where does that sadism come from? The Watts family murders is one of the most sadistic family murders I've come across. It's also what the judge described as something more shocking than he dealt with in many, many years. Although it's no match for the sadism of the Van Breda axe murders, where 20-year-old hacked to death both parents, his older brother and his younger sister, who ultimately survived. It's still sadistic in what he ultimately achieved. In other words, what I'm saying is, whether you hack to death someone with an axe or you kill them in some kind of stealthy way, it's still sadistic. Murder, any murder is sadistic. Even stealing from someone is sadistic. You are getting a benefit at the expense of someone else. You don't care how they feel. You take some glee and some enjoyment out of the suffering of somebody else. And so, as I say, the Watts case feels gentler than axe murders, but consider the level of sadism to carry out one, then another, then a third strangling or execution. There's also something particularly reprehensible about killing one's own children, as well as this idea of a quiet man quietly killing 3 innocent, helpless females in his care and custody. And so we look at this side of it and we say, where does this come from? Where did this horrible idea come from in Watts's mind? Did it come from anywhere, or did it come from nowhere? A lot of people are saying that it came from nowhere, that Watts just snapped, or Watts just randomly did something and nobody knows why. But, if strangling is less sadistic than murder by axe, the carefully crafted disposal of the remains in oil drums and dirt feels coolly calculated, cruel and heartless, as if people he once knew as family, as a wife, as his own flesh and blood children, had suddenly been alchemized into garbage, and once they were garbage they could all be treated as such, and not a single tear shed in regret or remembrance. I've come a long way in true crime. I've written quite a few narratives. One of the narratives that has taught me the most was Slaughter, in which I studied mass murderers, and where for the first time really studied the link between sadism and humiliation. I repeated that learning curve when I wrote a book called Incel, Cause and Effect. Exact same thing, where one realizes the incredible humiliation felt by these mass killers. We laugh at that and we say, so what if someone made fun of them, they deserved it. But they weren't laughing, and when they committed their crimes, well, then they were laughing, especially Elliot Rodger. And so what we see is they go hand in hand. Where there's sadism, there's anality, and being anal is a little bit like being OCD. They go hand in hand. Wherever there's anality, there's humiliation. Without knowing anything about the Watts case, it was immediately obvious that there was an extreme amount of humiliation somehow at play in the family dynamics. I knew it was somewhere when I started investigating the Watts case, because obviously these books I wrote predated the Watts case, but I had no idea where it would come out. I just knew that it would. And so when it turned out that he was an introvert, and also that his spouse in this was very active on social media and he had virtually no social game, no social presence, that humiliation aspect made sense. And so at the time, and this was October last year, I was saying we're starting to see the evidence of that now, of the humiliation. And I said this is just the tip of the iceberg, and the humiliation, mark my words, isn't just limited to what the murderer felt. And what I meant by that was that he probably felt humiliated through words as well, through not just pictures and whatnot. He was humiliated in other ways. What I find very strange looking at this post now is that I thought that this aspect would be dealt with, and I don't really think it has been. I think YouTubers have avoided whatever Shanann has done to Chris Watts. That's just that's like unholy ground. You just don't go there. And yet it is part and parcel of their dynamics, just as it is the dynamics of any couple. The question is, how much did it actually play into the crime? I think one way of answering that is just if you ask yourself, do you mind being humiliated on Facebook? Do you mind being humiliated on social media? Do you mind when someone leaves a snarky comment on, in a YouTube comment? Does it bother you? Would it bother you if someone close to you did that? Would it bother you if someone close to you did that kind of repeatedly? Would it bother you if someone did that and then you were trying to rescind your relationship with that person? Would it bother you what they might do in response? Would that affect the way that you withdrew out of the relationship? All points to ponder, I hope, and I hope this is an intelligent community that can think about this in a reasonable, sensible way without reacting and being too emotional about it. I've discussed something that is even more sort of, I guess, intense in a way on Patreon. As I say, it's also got to do with emotions. I do think the emotional narrative is one of the least understood in the Chris Watts case. It's all caught up within the narcissism thing and the monster, the psychopath monster who has no emotion. As soon as you do that, you eviscerate all his humanness and yours as well. You basically say that you're a human being and someone else is not, and that then gives you the right to humiliate. Think about the connection between the words human being, humanize, and humiliate. It sort of almost strips a human being down to nothing. In any event, thank you for listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, ring the bell if you want to receive notifications. If you're not a member of Patreon, consider joining. It's only $1 and you get quite a lot of content for that. Just a reminder, I have a book coming out in about a week called Murder Most Foul, and that's on the Patrick Frazee case. Those who are interested in the Watts case will probably get a lot of value out of this book as well, just because of the many similarities, but also there are distinct areas that makes Frazee different to Chris Watts. Thank you for listening.